I think that most people know by now that Mjällby have won the Allsvenskan title, but what a lot of them don't know is that they...
Shamrock Rovers coach Stephen Bradley could win the Irish title on the same day he runs the Dublin Marathon. But the thing he says he's most nervous about is...
Hello, and welcome to The Sweeper, the World Football podcast made in association with FIFA Plus. I'm Lee Wingate.
And I'm Paul Watson.
And as Europe's 12 summer leagues draw to a close, we're going to be bringing you the best stories they have to offer in this episode. I'm in Lithuania right now to visit TransINVEST. Plus, we've got headlines from Ireland, Iceland and Kazakhstan to come. But we have to start this podcast, Paul, with Sweden's new champions.
We do. Mjällby, yes. And this was a remarkable story, wasn't it, Lee? It's one of those ones that goes very mainstream because suddenly everyone is really excited by something this crazy happening. But we've been following them for almost all season because they just got off to such a remarkable start to the season. We thought, well, you know, can they hold on? And they have very easily, in fact, held on to win the Swedish title.
Yeah, an absolutely brilliant story. I did see a Swedish journalist write online the other day, if I see the words tiny fishing village one more time, which is, of course, how many media sources are reporting it. The thing I think that made Mjällby initially stand out for us is that they're from Hällevik, which has a population of 1,485 people. But we're not going to talk about that today. If you want to hear about Mjällby's home village, the 50+1 rule in Sweden, their assistant coach with a PhD in scanning, then check out our episode from the 19th of August 2025. I think what we want to talk about today, Paul, is the human story, the people behind the scenes that have made this unlikely triumph happen. We've got some tales of adversity, some tales of people working multiple jobs, some people that have been with the club right from the very beginning. Who would you like to talk about first?
It's incredible, as you say. Everyone's, you know, amongst the kind of key figures at the club, there are so many amazing stories of people overcoming adversity. The one that jumped out at me maybe the most was the coach, because I knew nothing about this until the eve of them lifting the title. When I read I think it was in The Guardian, I read an interview, and it just really jumped out at me that the coach, Anders Torstensson, who we had spoken about being a former school principal, I think we've mentioned that before, he got diagnosed just last August with a chronic condition called lymphocytic leukemia, which is non-aggressive in that it won't kill you. But he said to The Guardian, you don't die of it, you die with it. So from now I live my life as usual, but it could change in 6 months. So he has this condition that effectively at any moment, I suppose, could become life-threatening, and it's affecting his day-to-day life. And he's managed to just kind of carry on and lead this title charge. And I just think it's an astonishing thing to suddenly become aware that someone's been dealing with that on top of this amazing season they've been having.
And equally, the sporting director, Hasse Larsson, has been with the club since 1979, has survived both a brain tumour and prostate cancer. So the leading figures at the club have really been through the mill. And Larsson, actually, back in 2016, when the club was in a pretty dire financial position, worked without pay for 3 years.
Yeah, so this is obviously a part of the amazing Mjällby story, is exactly how low they were as recently as, 2016. They're in the third division. They almost, I think, were relegated again. They're on the edge of that. But also they're close to folding as a club. You know, it's only a last day win that saves them from relegation, but they are on the brink of the club just not existing at all. And so people are having to make these kind of sacrifices. As you say, sporting director working without pay for 3 years. I think the captain, Jesper Gustafsson, had been with them from that point, right? So he'd gone all the way from that low right up to winning the title, which is, I think we've spoken before about players who have played in all the leagues or players who've had an amazing ride. I think there was a player at Como in Italy who had been with them since, Serie D all the way up to Serie A. But this is like the ultimate version of that, seeing the club from the brink of collapse in the lowest, fourth tier, on the edge of the fourth tier, all the way up to winning the title. That is an incredible journey.
Yeah, I was trying to think of parallels for that. I wonder if I don't know when Wes Morgan started his journey with Leicester City, but he ultimately captained them to the Premier League. But I think he might have come through a few divisions as well. But that is amazing. As you say, they were one result away from being relegated to the fourth tier in 2016. And he has been with them through 2 promotions and now a title win. But I think, Paul, we've saved the best until last in terms of what is the best soundbite, because the chief scout, Arvid Fransson, has been working as a postman up until very recently while serving as the club's chief scout and building a title-winning squad. And I think the news that has sort of caught many people's attention in the last days is that he's now given up that role only now with them as champions to join Mjällby on a full-time contract.
Yeah, so it's mixed news for the people of Hällevik, isn't it? Great news is that he gets to be a full-time concentrating on the football. Bad news, your mail's not coming anymore.
Yeah. But hopefully there's another front he can deliver on now.
Yeah, exactly, right. Oh, no, I mean, it's magic stuff, isn't it? Like, the idea that he was working as a postman, but also building the squad that would go on to be the national champions. It's magnificent stuff. It feels like this whole story has rolled back the clock 30 or 40 years to a point where the stars of this story are just normal guys who have done an incredible job and achieved this, but they are not superstars, and they're just down-to-earth normal people. It's so lovely.
I think that most people know by now that Mjällby have won the Allsvenskan title, but what a lot of them don't know is that they could become Sweden's most successful team ever in terms of the number of points racked up in a single season. Now, at the time of recording, they are currently playing and losing at home to Norrköping. You have to suspect that the parties throughout this week might have taken their toll, Paul. But they need just 2 more points from their final games to exceed the record points tally set by Malmö in 2010 and AIK in 2018. That was 67 points. So another historic milestone that could be within their grasp.
It could be, although I imagine the fans will be getting on their back now, surely, losing at home to Norrköping after this, right? No, it is incredible. It shows exactly how miraculous the season's been, because as we alluded to, they went off fast and you thought, well, how long can this last? This miraculous story. And even the last time we told it on the pod, a bit of me was thinking, well, even if they totally collapse now, there's a chance, they'll secure European football or something like that. And they've just not let up the whole way through. Even the way they secured the title, I did think they may not win against Gothenburg. They might, away to Gothenburg, maybe that won't be the one they win. They've got games, still there. They've got match points effectively left. But no, they just went out and won it there. So, they have been an absolute juggernaut, haven't they?
They certainly have. It seems that sadly they will not be able to play their Champions League qualifying matches at their Strandvallen home. That is the stadium in their village that has, I think, a capacity of 4 times the village's population. According to reports, they will play 100 kilometres away in Vestri, which I think is a little bit... it's still amazing they're in the Champions League, but I think in terms of a trip destination, if we are going to go to Mjällby, we want to be going to that seafront stadium, don't we?
Yeah, well, I'd like to go to a tiny fishing village, Lee. Don't know about you. Sorry. There should be like a bleep on that now, shouldn't there? Tiny fishing village should be bleeped out. It loses something for sure, and I worry that it also loses something for the fans of the club. I imagine a lot of them will travel 100 kilometres. I mean, for that occasion, it's a once-in-a-lifetime sort of opportunity to go to those kind of games. But it just does lose something in terms of the setting and the home advantage factor. I never like to see a team not allowed to play at home, even if there are probably fairly good reasons. We've sort of talked about these before, that UEFA have to have a certain standard for matches of a certain level, and we get that.
All right, we'll leave it there for Mjällby. But coming up, we have stories of heartbreak, helicopters and heroism in Iceland, Ireland and Kazakhstan, respectively. First, though, let's move over to Lithuania to hear about another first-time title winner. Kauno Žalgiris are the new champions, and here is Titas Teiten of Baltic Football News to tell us about their remarkable season.
Hello everyone, Titas Teiten here from Baltic Football News. So yes, the 2025 Lithuanian football season has truly been one to remember. I think it was full of excitement, really interesting surprises and unforgettable moments. And of course, one team stands right at the center of it. It's no other than Žalgiris Kaunas. This year has undoubtedly been their year after several frustrating seasons where they always seem to fall just short. 2025 has almost been flawless, at least in the A-Lyga championship. Lithuanian football giant Žalgiris Vilnius usually dominate the league, but that has not been the case this year. And this title means so much more than just another trophy for Žalgiris Kaunas. And the reason is very simple. It's the very first trophy in the whole club's history. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were moments of disappointment, like their early exit from the Lithuanian Cup in the quarterfinals against Sūduva Marijampolė, or their heartbreak in the third qualifying round of the Conference League, where even 3 red cards in 2 games ended their European hopes. But domestically, we can safely say that their dominance was never really in big doubt. At times, the other Kaunas team, Hällevik, looked like they might pose a serious threat, but their inconsistency kept them from truly challenging Žalgiris Kaunas, and in the end, eventually, the team sealed the championship with even 4 games to spare, which of course is considered as a remarkable achievement and a powerful statement that Lithuanian football might just be back in Kaunas. For many fans, this actually feels like a resurgence, because back in the 2000s, a club which actually doesn't exist anymore but is still considered as a legendary club, FBK Kaunas, were the dominant force in the Lithuanian football. And now, perhaps, we're seeing the start of a new golden era, this time led by another Kaunas team, which is Žalgiris Kaunas. I personally think that the future of the club looks very bright. With a strong sporting culture that the club already has and enjoys in basketball, I think it's only a matter of time before football begins to shine just as brightly, especially if results keep coming, just as they came this year. So yes, 2025 may just go down as the year when Žalgiris Kaunas not only made history, but also started a new chapter for football in the whole country of Lithuania.
Thank you so much, Titas. Titas Teiten, Paul, that's a great name, isn't it? I know that's not what we're supposed to be reacting to first, but it's a great name.
Yeah, he sounds like a heavyweight boxer or a wrestler or something. He certainly does. Sounds like someone you wouldn't mess with, but
Yes.
Really, really great insight from him, and also someone that we do follow for news from that region. We strongly recommend it. Always very solid from there.
Yeah, we'll put some links to the Baltic Football Podcast and Baltic Football News in the episode description. It's quite interesting. We've talked this season about the difficulties that Žalgiris Vilnius have been having. There was that protest earlier in the season where the fans threw suitcases onto the pitch. And I think then after that, I think fairly recently, the club, sporting director or something like that, has said that they are in a near bankrupt state, which is quite a crazy admission for the country's biggest club. And now with Kauno Žalgiris winning the league, it seems sort of like the tectonic plates of Lithuanian football were shifting.
Yeah, it does feel that way, doesn't it? Yeah, that was a dramatic moment, wasn't it? With the suitcases raining down at the coach, who I think stayed on for a while after that, eventually did leave. But it seemed like what happened was the owner of the club left, and that there was a whole sort of catastrophe that swept through, with some doubts about the veracity of the share documents, all these kind of things in the financials of the club. Like a house of cards kind of came down, which funnily enough is something we've seen a lot in Latvia. This is a very Latvian situation of big clubs just tumbling.
Indeed. All right, let's leave it there for part 1. How about we take a quick break, and then afterwards, Paul, I'll tell you the story of my visit to TransINVEST. Welcome back to part 2 of The Sweeper. We finished the first segment in Lithuania. We're going to start the second segment here too. I've spent several days in this fine country now, Paul, and I have to say, Vilnius is a wonderful city full of wonderful people, some of whom I got to meet yesterday when I paid a visit to the second tier champions TransINVEST. Do you want to remind the listeners how this particular club first came onto our radar?
Oh, yeah. I think, is it because of our obsession with second-tier cup winners? Is that right? Were they the winners of the Lithuanian Cup while a second-tier club? We also love their name, obviously. You know, it's got that kind of quirkiness to club being called that. And they had a derby that we dubbed El Logistico against another sort of logistics company called Hagelmann, right? The German company.
Exactly. Yeah, so that is, I think last year when they were in the top division, those two clubs played against each other, and we called it El Logistico, which I'm still very happy about that we managed to come up with that name. But yeah, when I booked a trip to come to Vilnius, I didn't specifically have a TransINVEST game in mind, and then I checked the fixtures. I saw that they've just built a new stadium, and I sent the club a DM on Instagram and said, "Hey, interested in coming to your game on Saturday? Is it being played at the new stadium?" And I got a message back saying, "Yes, do come along. Tell us where your hotel is and we'll pick you up." So I genuinely got the TransINVEST sort of, I guess he's everybody. He's doing multiple things at the moment, including social media, match day announcements. He's called Dionis. He came to my hotel, picked me up and took me to this stadium. And as we were driving out to this village about 20 kilometers outside of Vilnius called Galene, which is tiny, by the way, 100 inhabitants in this place, to this new stadium, he was telling me, sort of filling in the gaps in my knowledge in the club's story. And it is really, really fascinating. So I think we'll take you through it all now, through the stadium, the club, the match that I saw, and then some fairly unique experiences I had afterwards. But we'll start, I think, Paul, with the stadium, because it's everything that you hoped it would be from TransINVEST. It is on the site of the logistics company. So they own a parcel of land with their offices, their vans, and they decided, hey, if we're going to build a new stadium, we're going to build it on our own land. And it's actually set up in such a way that it's so close, the stadium, to the offices, that one of the players, his name is Arminas Chivilis, he works at the logistics company, clocks off each day at 11 o'clock, goes to training with TransINVEST, and then goes back to work for the company afterwards.
That's fantastic. So it takes it as a lunch break to play for a top flight European club.
Yeah, well, top flight as of next season, because this season they have won the second tier again. It's actually quite a unique journey that the club have been on, because they were founded at the end of 2021, and in every season that in their existence they have either been promoted or relegated. So they went up from the third tier, up from the second tier, back down to the second tier, and now they've gone back up again. In the middle of all of that, they qualified for the Europa Conference League qualifying rounds after winning the 2023 Lithuanian Cup. And that, quite interesting, because one of the big questions I had going into my day at TransINVEST was, how do you manage to build up a fan base for a club owned by a logistics company based in a village of 100 people? Which sounds like a pretty insurmountable task. But what they've done, I think quite cleverly, is they rented another stadium in Širvintos, which is a Lithuanian town a little bit further outside of Vilnius. And they don't actually have a club that plays there. So the local community started to become fans of TransINVEST, and they built up a little bit of a fan base. And so when it came to their UEFA Conference League qualifying tie last summer, they actually took several minibus loads of fans down to Mlada Boleslav in Czechia. So it seems like there is actually quite a fan base getting behind the club. And just, I think last week or a couple of weeks ago, when they did the opening ceremony of their new stadium, there were 1,000 people in attendance, which for a Lithuanian second division club that is based in a village and just getting started, I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it really is. Because I did wonder that, like, the name of the club doesn't naturally inspire the sense that people would get behind that as my club. I mean, is it like the equivalent of people playing for Parcel Force or like Every, like Every FC here in the UK, which is a much maligned delivery company that we get here in the UK?
Yeah, I guess so. And I think, unsurprisingly, anything sort of new and that sounds like a corporate entity like this gets met with a lot of skepticism. So the sort of the message I was hearing on Saturday was that, yeah, we have to prove ourselves over time. because otherwise, how do you get people to really believe that you're here for the long term? The Baltic countries have a lot of history, as we said, of clubs going into financial difficulty and then no longer existing, and they, I think, have to prove in the long term that they are here to stay and that this is a long term project. And I think how do you do that in a better way than building a new stadium? And this new stadium, according to a Lithuanian journalist called Paulius Jakelis, it cost €5 million. And it's the kind of private investment that you just simply do not get in a country like Lithuania. So it is, in that sense, a very unique project. And the stadium, let me just say, it's lovely. It's really lovely. The paint is barely dry because it's supposed to officially be open from the start of next season. Now, Lithuania is a summer league country, so it should be opening when the season kicks off around March or April next year. But I think there's been a little bit of, let's say, perseverance from the local authorities who wanted to get the stadium open already. And so what you can see is like sort of a pile of dirt next to the pitch where they're going to be building an academy, they're going to be building a dome for inside winter training, and that this is still all to come. So it is really brand spanking new. It was their first ever, I think, league game in this stadium. And it felt like a really, really lovely atmosphere. You know, I wasn't sure what the atmosphere would be like, but there were fans, there were ultras, there was a drum, there were TransINVEST flags, they were singing songs. It was definitely livelier than I expected it to be.
That's very. I was going to ask about ultras. You know, you can't just make an ultras group. I guess that comes together over time. And what was the game like though? What on the field? How did it go?
It didn't go quite according to plan for TransINVEST because essentially they won the league with like 5 games to spare. They won it at a canter, and what that meant, I guess, is that you tend to not have as much to fight for other than pride. And the team they were playing against, the Cholet reserves, they had, I think they were fighting to avoid relegation, so they had a lot on the line, and they ended up winning 2-1. But it wasn't necessarily the result on the pitch that was the thing that stuck in my mind. It was more the sheer amount of rain, right? Because in the Baltic countries, they are all summer leagues, and this is the first time I've been to see football in a summer league country. And boy, do you understand why. It was freezing out there. The rain was hammering down. And at a certain point in time, every challenge on the pitch, every time the ball was kicked, there was water spraying up. Oh, it was an absolute, I was going to say mud bath, but there wasn't mud. It was just a bath. It was...
I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, me neither. But yeah, the game itself wasn't sort of... Yeah, it was the experience of going and finding out about this club and how they're trying to build a fan base, and even meeting, I'm going to call him Mr. TransINVEST himself, Vidmantas Peleda. He is the owner of the transport and logistics company. And I think it is a story that we've heard in plenty of other countries. He is a successful businessman. He wanted to start a football club, and he's literally done just that. And at the very beginning, when they started out, they had a mixture of university students, even more club employees. And this club is not making a profit for them. It's company money that is sustaining TransINVEST at this moment in time. But he clearly just loves football. Now, sadly, he can't speak much English. So I was introduced to him, and he shook my hand and wished me good football. Which I
think people like Bon Appetit, right? There should be a phrase for that, like good football, like have a good football.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, yeah. But so I met him, watched the game, and then afterwards it was quite funny because they had the new second division trophy. They had it out on display, and I helped carry that into the tactics room with the coaches and everything at the end. It was a really, really cool experience. And if you don't mind a little bus journey and you do come to Vilnius, I would highly recommend going to see the club. They're really friendly people, and I think they're building something pretty cool there.
That sounds really nice. Sounds like a really lovely experience. And yeah, it's nice to kind of get under the skin of a club like this. As you say, we've followed them for some time, have no real idea what the ins and outs of it are. And it just sounds like something really lovely. I mean, nice just to have a club where people will meet you. And when you sent me a message saying, I'm being picked up by TransINVEST, I was like, what? As a journalist, when you go to visit a game, you don't usually get picked up by the club. It's not like, oh, I'm being picked up by Aston Villa, actually. It was great.
Just an incredible welcome. So really nice. I want to talk a little bit about my post-match experiences, because I ended up getting a lift back into Vilnius in a car with the following people: the head coach, Marius Stankovicius, the sporting director, Davidas Chesnauskis, his wife and their little daughter, who closed the car door on me before I could get in. Which, I found immensely funny. And on the way back, after dropping the head coach off, they took me to the Baltic Football Academy, which is a second-tier club, but also a training facility for like youth teams. And one of their sons plays in the Baltic Football Academy. And what it is this big dome in Vilnius. And I think we've seen them when we've talked about clubs either in the Arctic Circle, the clubs, I think there's one in the north of Sweden that we've talked about, and they have to play inside these domes in the wintertime. And so I went in there and watched a bit of youth football and sort of had a look around. It feels like a huge tent, and it comes with massive operational costs, because every time the seasons change, you have to change the turf. It's tens of thousands to run. And I think it sort of throws into sharp relief why countries like this, have to be summer leagues, and why they are competing so heavily with other indoor sports, like in Lithuania, basketball and ice hockey, for people's attention. Because as soon as you get to sort of October, November time, you just don't want to be standing outside at football. And it's sometimes just practically impossible to play.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because I don't always put Lithuania in with that kind of group of countries, because Iceland, you think of Iceland, you think of the big domes. That's a big part of what's helped Icelandic football development. Or Mongolia, when I was in Mongolia for years, they could only play for very few months of the year, so they built one of these big domes and it was a huge deal. But yeah, I don't always think about Lithuania that way. And it also ties in with that thing you said that we mentioned on a past pod, how there is a sort of sense that Lithuanian football struggles and is maybe secondary to basketball for a lot of people. And that's something that takes some getting your head around for us too, I guess, as such a football-centric society that both of us are used to. So yeah, that is a fascinating feeling to actually experience it firsthand, to be like, oh yeah, this would be horrible to be outside in this.
I was explaining at the end to Dionys, the guy who showed me around, that in British English we have a saying for when it's incredibly cold. We say it's Baltic. And I said, here, you guys must just simply say it's normal, because it's like this all the time.
Did that go over? Did they got it? They liked it?
No, he got it, yeah. But I was thinking, that I think that is just in British English. I don't think in American English or Australian English people would say that.
You're right, I've never thought about the phrase either, but that is, I guess, what it means. Hey, again, you can't really complain, can you? It's like, well, yeah, it's cold.
You're in the Baltics, yeah. Yeah, anyway, a big thank you to Dionys and everyone that I met at TransINVEST. What an amazing time it was there. If you want to hear more about our ground hopping in Lithuania, the self-declared Republic of Užupis in Vilnius, which I paid a visit to, and delicacies like pig ear, then, Paul, join us on where?
On Patreon. We have a Patreon which we put out our bonus podcasts on. We have regular content that is exclusive to our patrons, and it helps us just keep making this pod and keep doing these kind of cool trips.
Yeah, exactly. We will have an episode out with more Baltic content, including some travel stuff, on Wednesday, the 5th of November. Patrons will also have the chance to win one of the lovely TransINVEST shirts that I am wearing right now. Patrons will get a triple entry into the competition we'll be running on Instagram, and we also have a TransINVEST scarf as well, Paul, which is going to go, it's upside down, I think. There we go. Yeah. The other way, which is also going to be winging its way to one of our patrons as well.
I love that shirt. It's so quirky. It's the flowers that make it. It's those three, I think the kind of bit in the that collar region just really makes it. And I've got to say, if you saw someone playing football in that, you'd think, what is that? If you just walk in someone at five-a-side, what is that? It's a cool shirt.
Yeah, I really, really like it. But as I say, thanks to everyone at TransINVEST. We will hopefully, if we come to Vilnius again, pay them another visit in the future and see where they're at. Finally then, Paul, let's round up the remaining Summer League headlines. Where shall we start?
Well, let's start in Ireland and with Shamrock Rovers coach Stephen Bradley, who is having a pretty big weekend, Lee. So you might remember, listeners might remember, a few months ago, we focused on Shamrock Rovers playing Santa Clara of Portugal, and Shamrock Rovers beat them in Europe. This was like pretty big result for them, I think. And after the game, Shamrock Rovers' coach, Stephen Bradley, was really emotional, and he said, "This has been the best week of my life." And I remember thinking at the time, that's a very strong reaction to that win, as good a win as it was. But it turned out the reason he had said that actually was because his son, Josh, had been having treatment for cancer for about 3 years. He'd just been given the all clear. He got that news pretty much as he was taking off for the match. So he had that news to process, and then this incredible win over Santa Clara. And I think all this floodgate of emotion was just opened. So now we flash forward. Shamrock Rovers are on the brink of securing the title in Ireland. And Stephen Bradley has signed up to run the Dublin Marathon in support of a children's cancer charity called Oscar's Kids. Obviously a fantastic cause he feels a great attachment to. The only problem is he signed up to the marathon, and then the game, Shamrock Rovers' game against Derry, was moved to the Sunday, the same day as the marathon. So he has to run a marathon in Dublin and get up to Derry in time for the match. The only way to do that is by taking a 45-minute helicopter ride, pretty much as he is, sweaty, exhausted, straight to kickoff.
Brilliant, isn't it? So it's going to take him just under an hour to get there. I just love helicopters in football, whether they're delivering trophies or you've got Italian club presidents dropping footballs out of them. I love it when we manage to get a helicopter story into the sweeper. This is happening pretty much at the time of recording, isn't it? Because we're recording on Sunday. So by the time you hear this, Shamrock Rovers may well have won the title in Ireland, and Stephen Bradley will surely be having 3 or 4 pints to celebrate. All right, let's move on to Iceland next, because we're going to have a second division team in the UEFA Conference League qualifying rounds next season, Paul. Vestri from the northwest of Iceland have been relegated in the same season in which they won the Icelandic Cup. We love a second-tier club in Europe, but it is a shame that Vestri have gone down so soon after winning their first major trophy.
Yeah, I think it kind of highlights what a shock it was that they won the cup in the first place, right? So I think when we first spoke about how they'd managed that, it seemed like a really unlikely win, and it's often very hard to juggle that, isn't it? We see this happen. Teams really commit to a cup run, and they struggle in the league, and they probably won't be able to play at their home stadium either, right? It's another one of those, because that is one of the most beautiful grounds you could wish to see, isn't it?
Yeah, I presume that will be in Reykjavik, but we don't have confirmation on that yet. Finally, from the Summer Leagues, Kazakhstan, the title race went right down to the wire with Kairat and Astana facing each other on the final day. Both teams could still win the league pool. Astana needed to win to become champions, and they went ahead only for Chelsea-bound Dastan Satpayev to equalise for Kairat and win them the title. Doesn't get more dramatic than that.
It doesn't, and it almost felt meant to be, doesn't it, for Satpayev? He's just having this stellar rise. What a kind of star he is on the rise, and he's had a magnificent time of things. It just felt really set up for him to be the hero as his parting gesture, as you say. He's on his way to Chelsea. That said, he may not go directly to Chelsea, right? I think he technically signs as of next August, so I'm not entirely sure what happens to him between. And even because he's so young, he became, in fact, the youngest scorer in the Champions League, didn't he, this season? So I think maybe he doesn't go directly. Maybe Chelsea loan him out anyway. So we may still see him. They may loan him out to someone else. May even loan him back to Kairat. Who knows?
Who knows, indeed. All right, that's it for our Summer League roundup. But do stick around, because we're about to introduce a new sweeper tradition in just a second, and you don't want to miss it. But first, some quick info about our next episode. I will be going to the Latvian Cup final this week, and having a chat to the Virsliga president, Maxim Krivunets, meaning there will be another shorter free episode going out later this week on Friday. So do join us for that. All right, now though, it's time for On the Spot, our new tradition. At the end of each episode, Paul and I will take it in turns to put the other one on the spot. And today, I will be putting Paul on the spot. There are 5 categories of increasing difficulty. They are continent, country, city, club, and player. Paul has to choose which one he feels more comfortable with in the knowledge that a continent is only worth 1 point, a country 2, a city 3, a club 4, and a player 5. I will then name something from that category and he has to tell me a fact about it. And we will be keeping scores, Paul, in the long run. So what do you want to go for? How much risk are you going to take? Continent, country, city, club, or player?
Well, because it's the first one and I want to get some points on the board, and I'm imagining this will be a long season. I imagine this goes on until we disband the podcast in 40 years' time. I'm going to go for I'm going to go for country on this one, Lee. 2 points.
All right, your country, your FIFA member is Guam.
Oh, okay, right. Guam have a team in what is effectively the top flight, the Budweiser G League, called...
Brilliant already.
It's good, isn't it? Bank of Guam strikers Barcelona.
That's the full name?
Yeah, beer spelled as in, beer, the drink, is one of the teams. Guam Shipyard, also one of the good teams out there. Sidekicks. Yeah, I can name a few. But also Guam's best ever player is Jason Cunliffe, brilliant striker from Guam, who's also just a lovely, lovely man who has helped us out with Micronesian football on many occasions.
Well, excellent. I think you've passed with flying colours there. So that's 2 points to Paul. Paul, you take in a 2-0 lead ahead of the next episode.
Yeah, but you got a game in hand, Lee.
Yeah, that is very true. And I'm going to go big next time. So you have to tune in on Friday to find out.